phrases and clauses. Students, what do you see on the screen? We see sentences. Okay, so what is a sentence? A sentence is a group of words which contain subject and a predicate. What is a subject? Means where there is a noun or a pronoun. And what is a predicate? Predicate means it contains verb. Now see the first sentence. Now let's read the first sentence. He has a chain which is made of gold. Now is there a subject here, a noun or a pronoun? Yes, there is a pronoun he. So he is a subject. Next, has a chain, okay, which is made of gold. So has a chain is a what? It is a predicate. So where a sentence which contains a subject and a predicate, then that part of the sentence is called as clauses. Now let's see the next one. He has a chain of gold. Now of gold, this part, underlined part, is there a subject? No. Is there a predicate? No. So a sentence, or you can say a group of word where there is no subject and no predicate, then it is called as phrase. Let's see the definition now. What is a phrase? A phrase is a grammatical term referring to a group of words that does not include a subject and a predicate. And what is a clause? A clause is a group of related words containing a subject and a predicate. Let's see more examples. First one, the red balloon floated above the treetop. Now in the underlined part you'll find there is no subject, there is no predicate, so it is an example of a phrase. Second, next year we are visiting New York. So yes, in the underlined part there is a subject we and there is a predicate are visiting New York. So it is an example of a clause. Next, the majestic elephant trumpeted loudly at the surprised tourist. So in the underlined part there is a subject, the majestic elephant, and the trumpeted loudly is a predicate. So it is an example of a clause. Next, Noah drank his milkshake as quickly as possible. So in this underlined part, you will find there is no subject, there is no predicate. So it is an example of a phrase. Last one, on Saturday, I went to the cinema. So in the underlined part, I is a subject and went to the cinema is a predicate. So it is an example of a clause. Now, I hope you're clear with the difference between the phrases and the clauses. Now let's move further. Here we'll see the different parts or different types of clauses. L- Let's see this sentence. They were her friends who enjoyed the music. Now, in the first part, this full sentence is a clause. Okay, but now you'll find in the first part, let's divide the sentence into two parts. The first part, they were her friends. Now you'll find this part, even if you write they were her friends, it makes a complete meaning. Okay, and it is not at all dependent on the another sentence, so it doesn't depend on any other words to complete its meaning. It itself is completed. And when a sentence or a part of a sentence which is completed and doesn't need any help from any other words, then it is called as a main clause. Now see the second part. Who enjoyed the music? Now who enjoyed the music? We don't know. If we write only who enjoyed the music, then it doesn't make any sense. But if we write they were her friends who enjoyed the music, then it makes a complete sense. So the last part, if we write who enjoyed the music, it doesn't make a complete sense. But if we want to make a complete sense, we have to depend on the main clause. And such part of a sentence is called as subordinate clause, where they have to depend on the main clause to complete its meaning. So these are the two types of clauses. You can say that is the main clause and the subordinate clause. Now let's see the more examples. First one, Frizz had knocked down an albatross which attacked him. Now see the first part. Frizz had knocked down an albatross. So does it make a complete sense? Yes. So it is an example of a main clause. And who has attacked him? It is a dependent clause because it is incomplete. And if we want to complete it, we have to take help from the main clause. So it is an example of a subordinate clause. Next, they saw a ship which had laid anchored. So they saw a ship is a main clause, okay, because it doesn't depend on anything or any other words, which had laid anchor. So it is incomplete. So you have to depend on the main clause to complete it. So second is, it is an example of a, you can say, subordinate clause. Okay, next, when morning came. Now, when morning came, you will find it is an incomplete sentence. Okay, what happened? We don't know. So it is an example of a subordinate clause. Okay, nothing was left of the proud rich city. So even if we write the sentence, nothing was left of the proud rich city, then also it makes a complete sense. So it is an example of a main clause. Next, I see why the great chef pretended not to know, pretended not to notice me. So I see is what? It is a main clause here. Okay, why? Because it makes a complete meaning. You see. Okay, you saw something. But why the great chief pretended not to notice me? Okay, why? We don't know the reason. So that means it is a dependent clause and I see is a main clause. Next, when I go to a bank, when I go into a bank, I get rattled. So when I go into a bank, what is it? It is not making a complete sense. So it is an subordinate clause and I get rattled. Okay, so I get rattled is a having a complete meaning. So it is an example of a main clause. So yeah, I hope you're cleared with this two types of clauses, that is the main clause and the subordinate clause. So again, let's revise it. So clauses are divided into two parts. It is called as main clause and dip and subordinate clause. It can also be called as principal clause and dependent clause. Now, here will not stop. There is one more thing, that is clauses are further. The dependent clause is further divided into three parts. That is noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. Let's see each in detail. Noun clause. Okay, so what is a noun clause? It helps to identify or define a noun. And to identify whether the sentence is a noun clause or no, there are some hints given. So there are 7 WH questions plus that. Which are the 7 WH questions? That is what, which, where, when, who, whom, and whose. Let's see the example. I don't know where he went. So here in this sentence you'll find where is there, as well as it gives you more information, or it helps you to identify or gives you information about the noun. He went. He is, the noun is being stressed, so it is an example of a noun clause. Next, I was so happy that I jumped with joy. So here again there is a word that, and it tells you what happened. That I, that is a subject, that is a noun, he jumped with joy. So more information about the noun is given. So again this is an example of a noun clause. Let's see the next type, that is adjective clause. Now what is an adjective clause? It defines an adjective or tells you more about adjective. Now let's see the hint, 7 WH question and that. Now you will say this hint and the noun clause hint is same. No, there is something else in adjective clause, that is asks a question which if you get an answer it is an adjective clause. Let's see how with the help of more examples. First example, I brought a shirt that was blue. So that is there. Okay, now ask the question, which shirt you brought? That was blue. And you got the answer blue from the subordinate clause. So it is an example of an adjective clause. Next, the cake that she brought was delicious. Now again that is there, so you can say it is an example of adjective. Now let's confirm whether it is really an example of adjective or no by asking question which. So that cake which he brought, the cake which that cake which he brought was delicious. So we got the answer from the subordinate clause. So it is an example of an adjective clause. Let's see the last type, that is adverb clause. Now what is an adverb clause? It defines or gives more information about the noun or verb. Let's see the hint. Here the hint words are before, after, since, until, wherever, whenever, unless, although, but, when and where. Now let's see the examples. He left before me. So we have before here, so it is an example of an adverb clause. Next, I think of you whenever I hear that song. So whenever is there, so it is an example of an adverb clause. Now, in the higher standard, you'll find that adverb clause has also different types, but that we'll study later. I hope you have understood this. Thank you.